Welcome to the Politics People, where I talk to the political influencers who are changing the world without being elected to office. My guest today is the journalist, organizer, and activist Daryle Lamont Jenkins. Good morning, Daryle.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Listen, thanks for talking to us today. Look, you're currently exec director of the One People's Project. Executive
Correct.
Director of the One People's Project. What does that organization do?
Well, I've always short-termed it as saying we're Radical Southern Poverty Law Center. Basically, what we do is that we research, report on, and basically expose the right, far right, the racist right, and show everybody what kind of things they're up to, what kind of shenanigans they get themselves in, and how they impact on us, and what we need to do to keep them from impacting us adversely. Basically, we try to diminish their ability to function.
Yeah, I suppose this is what you're best known for, and what I wanted to why I wanted to talk to you today. Yeah, so specifically, you and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you locate and identify far right campaigners, activists, if you like, and expose them.
Exactly. You are not wrong one bit. I mean, that's exactly what it is we do. That's who we are.
And how do you go about that? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is this where people start becoming familiar with doxing? Is it doxing is that a tool that's used by your organization?
Even more to the point, we're one of the first organizations that started using, I guess, what you call it, a tactic. We didn't see it as a tactic, however. When we started doing this, we just simply wanted to give everybody any and all information we had on these bad players, these bad actors in our political scene. And when we saw that anti-abortion activists were putting out the names and addresses of abortion providers, and some of them were getting killed behind those lists, and most importantly, the courts sided with them when those abortion providers took the pro-lifers to court over it. We said, okay, that's another tool for us as well. And ever since 2001, just about a year after we got started, we have been using that tool to advance what it is we do. If we're about putting out information, and that includes those names and addresses and such, so be it. We will do that.
Oh, that's interesting. So you've been going since 2001. That's we're 2 decades of activism now.
Yeah, this is our 20th anniversary. July 4th, 2000 will be our July 4th, 2020 will be our 20th anniversary.
Wow, good for you. So these, do you know what? I'd never made that connection before. I'm aware of the doxing, so-called, releasing sort of identity and private information as part of a strategy to expose opponents. But I didn't know that was its genesis. You were saying that it came from it was a strategy being used by anti-abortionists in the first place. So you sort of were able to surmise kind of what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
In a nutshell, yes. I mean, it was started by a really violent, or at least violence advocate by the name of Neil Horsley, who started a website called the Nuremberg Files. That was his anti-abortion website back in the late 90s. When Bernard Slepian was killed, his name was on the Nuremberg File website, and on that day he was killed. Bernard Slepian was an abortion provider back in the day,
right?
And when he was killed by an anti-abortion activist, same day Neil Horsley crossed his name off on the website. Actually struck a line through his website. So that's what brought out his notoriety. That's what brought out Neil Horsley's. Neil Horsley. Lee Horsley's an actor.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
that's what gave him his notoriety in the pro-life scene. And again, when people started promoting, people started doing it by putting the abortion providers' names on their placards outside their abortion clinics and such. That's when the abortion providers started taking them to court, and the court said, "No, this is free speech," and we said, "Okay, this is our free speech too." So we started saying, okay, since we pretty much have license to do this, we'll just go ahead and just start letting people know exactly who and what these folks are. And we are talking about people, not just folks who were, on the DL and such. We're talking about Sean Hannity and Michelle Malcolm. We was zeroing on, and it wasn't like we was trying to do things in spirit of malice. It was just simply we wanted people to know who is who and what is going on. So, and we've been pretty successful in that in the past 20 years.
You certainly have been, and that's really, really fascinating to me because, like I said, I'm a total political nerd on these things, but I had never made that connection, and that's really interesting. Who's been your biggest scalp, would you say, so far?
When you say biggest scalp, I mean somebody that
where have these methods, and again, I want this in your own words, and again, we've got a long interview here. I want to get into the actual sort of history of how you came to be doing what you're doing. But just say doxing, and doxing, I should explain, is again, it's doxing from exposing documents of an opponent. But as you point out, it's been upheld as a First Amendment. Has it been upheld? I say that, but it can be interpreted as a First Amendment right to be able to reveal personal information about somebody. What's been the most effective to date doxing campaign that you have orchestrated?
Well, I think there's so many. They just come and go. I mean, I think really the most successful things that we have done, I can't really point to just one thing. I mean, there is that candidate for a judgeship in Connecticut that we zeroed in on. She didn't win. There was a woman who was working for a top judge in Brooklyn Family Court who was also an associate of the Villain Social Club. She no longer works there. We've had people who were trying to run for office. We cost them that candidacy. Well, I mentioned the judge. I mean, there's just so many things. And let's not forget, there's been organizations that have been in our crosshairs via doxing. I remember, if anything, the most significant thing that we had done in that regard, there was an organization everyone knows as the National Alliance, a really huge white supremacist organization. The person that started the group was the one that wrote the Turner Diaries. And we all know how influential the Turner Diaries were in white supremacist circles. Well, we had someone who was a member of the National Alliance change sides. And when she changed sides, she provided us with all the information about the National Alliance members, including the mailing list, including the membership list. We posted all of that online. And within a matter of months, you started seeing the National Alliance fall apart. So if there was anything that was pretty significant via the work that we have done, it would definitely be that. Yes, National Alliance would probably be the nice little cathedral that we brought to the ground.
And it's through what bodies do you normally work? You've got the One People's what's it called again? Sorry, I beg your pardon.
One People's Project.
You've got the One People's Project, and the bigger group that certainly people in Britain might have heard of. No disrespect to the One People's Project. Are you active or part of Antifa? Is that
Antifa is what we are known as. We have been known. I'm known as Antifa. I've known as been an adherent to anti-fascism for 30 years. So I would say I have definitely been right there in Antifa movement. for about that long. There's no shame in it. It's just in regards, insofar that there is shame in it, it's only because you have a lot of right wingers who do not like being hassled by Antifa, and have turned and made a narrative out of calling us out as terrorists and such, while ignoring the terrorists on their side, mind you. And my attitude towards that is, if you hear people call out Antifa as being terrorists or criminal or evil, remember that if you are against fascism, you are Antifa. You are anti-fascist. And I run it down. I basically say Martin Luther King was anti-fascist, and the like.
Yeah, no, and I just think that's. I'm only bringing that up because I think that is certainly for the listeners in the UK. That's probably more of an organisation that they can kind of understand where you come from politically. For instance,
Right.
Antifa is just more of a kind of, and so what is so something like Antifa, is that like an umbrella? As you say, it's anybody who's anti-fascist is in Antifa, but for the actual coming together for protests, etc., is it like an umbrella organisation where lots of smaller groups sort of congregate underneath that umbrella,
Pretty much.
to mass?
Yeah, those who come out, you can definitely consider everyone as being under that Antifa umbrella. It doesn't necessarily mean that being an anti-fascist activist is their primary focus, but for the sake of whatever rally we are showing up at, we are. It is going to be the focus. But you have groups out there that deal with environmental rights, deal with women's rights, advocate for the LGBTQ community, and that is the primary focus for those groups. But when you're dealing with hate groups, and when you're dealing with individuals that are going out there and peddling that hate, and you come out and you start speaking out against them, or when you start congregating as one group that's going after that particular person, yeah, then we start talking. We are all Antifa for real.
And what is the primary goal of your particular group then? What is the One People's Project primary motivation?
Our motivation is to ensure that these individuals who peddle and hate politics do not have a foothold in society anymore. We want to diminish their ability to function. Simply put, we want them to go away
Has there
and
been?
not
Has there ever?
influence.
Oh, sorry, mate.
Oh no, I'm done. I'm done.
I was
Sorry.
just curious if there's been anybody in your 30 years of activism that you've disavowed. Anybody from your own side that you've kind of said, oh, actually, you've gone too far this time. We have to exclude. Are there activities that you would be unable to condone, no matter if it was exacted against your arch nemesis?
Well, I will tell you, if we engage, I could think of if you're reckless, absolutely, I have to do that. And I don't think it'd be fair for me to mention any names right now because, one, I can't think of any at the top of my head, but also I think it would just cause a little can of worms that I don't really want to engage in right now. But I think that um, there are uh, there is a question being made about, it happens in every circle. There's always that reckless knucklehead out there that does something they shouldn't be doing, like putting out misinformation. If there's one thing that we hate, I'm a reporter by vocation,
Right.
so I try to make sure that the truth is out there. I mean, I don't feel that we have to lie about what it is we're concerned about. We don't have to make things up about an individual or about a group in order to get people to understand what our concerns are. If you do, you're wrong. So if you get caught up in propaganda or some other kind of misinformation that just helps to advance your agenda or your narrative, I can't work with you. I cannot work with you, and I don't. I don't. I just leave you to yourself, and that has saved us quite a few times in our 20 years, because we are not. I mean, people have tried to lump us in with the more reckless elements of um, of our advocacy. But the fact of the matter is, so long as we stay away from it, we're not worried. We're not worried. So yeah, we there are some folks we disavow. We are some folks that disavow because they show that they're not being as productive or as effective as folks who are responsible in their efforts.
Your personal history is really interesting to me as well. You've come from, my understanding is, were you not in the Air Force?
Yes, yes. It wasn't the most exemplary of services, I would say. I did get kicked out because
Did you? Why? Why? What did you do?
yeah, well, I, I didn't do that was I mean, I don't like to joke about it too much, but it's basically I was a schlep. I was just a total schlep. I was not. Whenever I'm not in my element, I do a very bad job, and and the military was really not my element. That was not the way I really want to serve my society, and because of that, I just was very lacking in my abilities, and they had enough at one point, and they just X'd me out. They just gave me a general discharge. It's not a dishonorable discharge. It wasn't like I have to hang my head in shame about that. But the fact remains, I didn't want to be there, and they said, "Okay, feelings mutual."
Sure. No, that and your role within the Air Force. My understanding, were you a police officer in the Air Force?
Yep. I was a police officer, um, and that was part of the problem. Not necessarily a political part of the problem. It was just simply not the job I wanted to do in life. Media was the job I wanted to do in life,
Yeah.
and and it was annoying me. Now I'm gonna say this right quick. The fact remains that I was there, and I did not appreciate the fact, and I did not appreciate the fact that I was there. And there was a lot of people that were relying on me when I was in the military that I let down. I have to live with that. But so I don't want to sit here and say, well, I was just being the rebel and all that nonsense. No, no, I was wrong. I was wrong in the way I approached my service. If I did not want to serve that way, I should not have served. So
Yeah.
I will not.
Do you know
So
what?
I have to say that to make sure that people understand that no, I understand the wrong I did when I served in the lousy way that I did. So that's why I said earlier that I can't really joke about it. There's a lot of people out there who served with me that are still there and are doing a great job. And I do not want to undermine any work that they're doing right now.
No, sure. And you know what? I didn't bring it up in the spirit of trying to drag you over the coals for it at all.
Oh
No,
no. I know that. But when it comes up, I have to be honest about my
no,
service.
sure.
I don't think because that's also not fair. Because let's be real, if I wasn't honest about it, sooner or later it would come up.
Sure.
And
But, yeah, sorry.
So let's just get right in front of it now.
Yeah. No, but I mean, listen, this is my attempts at journalism. Now, what I'm interested in, and actually your reaction, I wasn't expecting that because I didn't know the rest of the story. I didn't know you'd been discharged not dishonorably, but discharged at all. Is there an element?
Right. I mean, and let me tell you something. It really, and let me make this clear. Also, it wasn't as though as bad as the situation was. I mean, as bad as the situation was for me personally, it really wasn't a bad situation. I just took the. I mean, I think I learned a lot from when I was in the military. I think that there was a lot of things that if I did appreciate it more, then there probably could have been a lot more I could have taken with me into what I'm doing now. Um, but still, I did get some things out of it. I got some understanding as to how things should and should not be.
Yeah,
And so I'm not gonna diss the military. You will never hear me diss the military.
No.
May have some problems with bad actors in it, like we was talking about before, but I'm not gonna diss the military ever.
Yeah, no, this is exactly the point I'm trying to make, but you're making it better than I can. You must have picked up skills and an overview of how organizations work, even with your experience. How much of that you must have transferred into what you're currently doing? And all I was going to say, and I'm just going to tack on, your reaction, the sort of like, oh God, yeah, I kind of screwed up a bit there. I wonder if your need to sort of complete that public service element of your young self has transferred over into your 3 decades of activism in your political career. I wonder if it's feeling like a community job unfinished for you, that's sort of part of the drive that keeps you interested in your current occupation.
Definitely, I would say that. Definitely, I would say that because I think one of the things that was really important, I've always wanted to be out there helping people, helping society, being in the forefront of things that are going to build what we eventually have in the future. So the military had my time in the military in many different ways um, showed me how I can do that. It wasn't necessarily what I learned. It wasn't necessarily going to be in the military. But also at the same time, I was also getting a little bit more into pop culture, into art and such. And I was listening to what some of those artists and some of those people in our pop culture were saying, and it started piquing my interest. I started reading a lot more Dick Gregory, for example. Whoopi Goldberg had a comedy album that I was really into. I went to go see Public Enemy for the first time. I mean, those kinds of things definitely impacted on me at that time. And not just that, but also meeting a lot of the people. I mean, being a police officer, you tend to meet a whole different, nice little cross section of folks who are all basically young and trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives. And you get understanding about what it is people are looking for in life, whether or not we agree and disagree politically. And we all just simply have a different way to achieve those goals. My mission in life was, hey, this is after I had left the military, my attitude was, you know what? This is now going to be my new direction. I have to chart a course that really hasn't been charted. That's what I have to do, and that's what I did.
You created the One People's Project. Uh, what are the logistics of something like that? How does that even get funded, for instance? How many staff do you have? Is there a permanent kind of, do you have permanent staffing, or is it like a volunteer basis?
Well, everything is ad hoc. I know a lot of people have been hitting me up, and I apologize to them for not responding, but a lot of people have been hitting me up asking how do they get involved. We're a small organization. We're just now trying to structure things, but everything for the past 20 years has been pretty ad hoc. I mean, we started in 2000 as an organization that was countering a particular white supremacist rally in New Jersey. We morphed that into what it is today. And in the course of that, you have a lot of people who fell off, and now it's down to maybe at one point it was down to just three people. It was just three of us causing a lot of damage, and but it was just but it was enough. It was enough until now when Trump started getting elected. When Trump was elected, not started getting elected, but when he was elected, people realized, okay, we really got to figure out how to handle this. And then they looked in our direction and noticed that we had a lot of information about a lot of people that they never heard of before and wanted to get on board to figure out how we're going to fix things.
Do you have any, just personally in your personal life, do you have any friends or family that are on the right, shall we say?
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely. Have a lot of friends that are on the right, have a lot of family that is on the right. And I don't and it's just a matter of, it is what it is. We're all not going to agree. But there's a difference between folks who disagree and folks who want to just violate somebody's human rights. I'm not going to unfriend you, so to speak, just because we have a disagreement with how we should be going politically. I mean, I'm going to have issues if you advocate for some harm to come to somebody
Right.
because you not like the fact that they went into the wrong bathroom. You know, I mean, these things get corny. And when we talk about having that kind of political disagreement within my family, and we do, and I do, I'm talking about that as a black man. And black people who get caught up in those kind of politics should know better. And I say that now because I'm running into, we have this new phenomenon that's coming up that we're dealing with now where we have black people joining what would have once upon a time been called white supremacist groups. So what's going on? We were a little bit too successful in building up diversity, advancing everyone and evolving, but we but in doing so, we have some folks who have become within us that have become so content and mainstream that they became right wingers, and some of them became far right wingers. So now we have to teach the lesson that no, you don't go and start recreating the mess that we have gotten ourselves out of. I would refer more or less to the Proud Boys because they're a hate group, but they're multiracial. But
I
they will
see.
attack Muslims. They believe women should be regulated to just homemaking, and most importantly, they like to attack people who are politically opposed to them. They believe that in the words of their founder Gavin McInnes, violence is a really effective way to solve problems. Well, if your problem is the fact that a woman is in the workforce, that's a problem for us. So, if you find people of color getting involved in groups like that, yeah, they can things have changed. Things have changed significantly, and we have to start recognizing that new game that's being played because they think they can just hide behind the notion that we only would expect this coming out of white supremacists. And we have to go out there and let people know, no, we have Jewish people getting involved with this, Hispanics and black people. We even have people from the LGBTQ community who are getting involved in this kind of nonsense. And if you want to talk about people that should know better, the folks that are getting involved with other folks that really want them about 20 years ago wanted them dead, it's just stupid.
Well,
It's just
don't you
stupid.
think that the problem rests with the Democratic Party, that they used to be the home for those disenfranchised groups that you're describing, and they seem to have taken a bit of a strange turn to me in the last sort of few decades, and a lot of people feel homeless and unrepresented. It's you're seeing it right across Europe and in the West, and in the United States, it seems to be represented by the kind of complacency of the Democratic Party, which has left a lot of people feeling that nobody speaks for them, and so they might have sought out answers in groups that they wouldn't traditionally be associated with.
I agree with that 100%, but I also have to qualify that by saying that it's not just the Democratic Party, it's the Republican Party. And this is one of the reasons why people say that Republicans and Democrats are one and the same. In the end, I do not feel that either major party is out there looking out for the best interests of the American people. They're looking for the best interests of their respective parties, and I will submit that they have kind of an agreement between both parties that they will try to survive as best they can. And for those who are trying to advance this country or this society, and you know that things are going to have to change in some fashion, that's a problem because they don't care about that unless the money comes rolling in to care about that. That's one of the reasons why we are really having a problem with the Democratic Party these days because they seem to insist on trying to maintain the status quo from within their party. And that's where the superdelegates come from. They basically built an electoral college within the Democratic Party so that they can make sure that their progressives do not advance too far. I mean, even former Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell, in defense of Joe Biden, said that the Democrats would never be a progressive party. And it's weird for him to say that, considering that they're really begging for progressive votes. I think at some point, both parties need to go. Both parties, we're going to have to find some way to circumvent those parties, to break them down. It's not going to happen overnight. Hell, it's not even going to happen within the course of the next year or so. I think that the way to solve the problem is going to take a massive overhaul of our political process, and that's where, and I always try to tell people this, that's where Occupy came from. Occupy was trying to find solutions outside of the political process that they felt was corrupt.
Haven't you got any
And
sort of sneaky kind of respect and admiration for, the most radical politician in the world at the moment is Trump. He's making what you're saying happen. He is actually disempowering the actual parties now, both of them.
there is some truth to that, absolutely. And like I said, we are talking about both parties. So yeah, the right is trying to do this as much as the left is trying to do this. Trump is the first president to, and I use that term president loosely. Uh, Trump is the first one to get into the White House without ever holding any elective office.
Yeah.
That's important.
Or serving in the
That's
military.
important.
It's those two qualifiers normally, isn't it? It's like
Well,
normally.
serving in the military has kind of like gone by the wayside a long time ago. When you talk about Bill Clinton or when you talk about Barack Obama,
Well, no,
they
but
never served in the
but no, it's
military.
okay. Well, Eisenhower hadn't held elected office. He came in from the military.
Well, true, true. Okay, I see your point. I see your point. Yes,
Those were
absolutely.
the two previous qualifiers. Now, I'm just being pedantic. It's just like it's either one of those two roles would have
Yeah,
historically served you to get to the White House.
right. I should have said actually that Donald Trump is the first person to go to the White House without having any kind of government role
Yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah.
That's what I meant to say. And that was important. And really, it was something that we were looking for. Too bad he's a lousy president, but to underscore a fact, but the fact remains that that they were able to do that. And the reason why is because over the past 20 some odd years, we have been trying to buck the political system as we know it. Take a look at what we have seen over the past 20 years. The first shot across the bow was back in 98 or so. I think it was 98 when Jesse Ventura became governor of Minnesota.
Right.
And the third party candidate becomes a governor of Minnesota. Now, people have arguments about how good a governor Jesse Ventura was. That's not the point here. The fact of the matter is
it can be done. It can be done. An independent can win.
and we have been trying to buck that system ever since. That's where Ralph Nader came in. That's where Bernie Sanders came in. And the funny thing that really irks me about the Ralph Nader campaign, for example, is that I had been involved in, by that time, political activism for maybe about 10, 15 years. And the one thing that really bothered me is that the Democrats, who I was supposed to be supporting, were not doing the fight that they should have been waging. They were not engaging as much as the rest of us in the street were. And it was frustrating. And it was also frustrating to the folks that were in the street. Ralph Nader was a thing where they said, okay, since the Democrats aren't going to do anything for us, we are going to look elsewhere. And that's when you started seeing the fight come out of Democrats. And I had been furious about that ever since. Because all of a sudden they started sounding like all the Republicans. And the criticism that the Republicans would level at us, they started to level at us.
Right.
And still do that today. They still do that today.
So, Daryle, what about you running for office? Have you not? Have you? And do you intend to?
I don't think I will be as effective as in government. I think one of the things people always said, if I ran, first of all, I would it would have to be a case where I would know I would be able to win. I would have to be able to win. And right now, the political process is so corrupt that I would only be able to do that as a Democrat or Republican. Maybe I should run as a Republican. That would be real interesting.
Oh, I'd love that. I would love to see that.
But the thing is, then I think I will be out of my element. I think when I'm able to focus on something I have the liberty to decide what I want to focus on, it works out. If you tell me to focus on other things, I don't think I will be as fair to those other things. Even if I am concerned, even if I do want to help or anything like that, I don't think I'll be as effective as some others out there that will be. Um, and others out there have done a better job than I ever could. I mean, I think going back to the Democrats. Now, here's something that's interesting about the Democrats. Now, when we talk about Trump bucking the system, but then you see the Democrats getting a taste of that too. Um, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for example,
Quite.
AOC took down a basically someone who was supposed to be a shoo-in in the primary, and she has become one of the more important figures in Congress today. So, and that gives you an idea of what direction we are all going in, um, politically speaking. I mean, the first six people I saw vie for the primary were women. And
Right.
then you started seeing people of color and all that. And it was really important to see that. But it was also important to see what the Democrats eventually did.
Well, which is exactly. Look, that's why I was saying that for me, my criticism, and like full disclosure, I am, I'm a Trump supporter, I'm a Trump voter, I vote Brexit and Trump, etc. But I'm just fascinated by the mechanics of the whole thing. It's like I'm more interested in I look at this like sport almost. It's just like, how's your team doing and how do they train, etc. Cortez is Trump. It's extraordinary. She's combined elected office with social media so effectively that she's become the most powerful person in the Democratic Party as far as the nation's concerned.
Well, Bernie Sanders is up there too. I think, but I really do think that
But you
when you talk
consider,
about like,
but Bernie Sanders has had 30 years as a senator.
yeah, but the climate is different today.
No, agreed. But if you look at,
Very different.
he's not going to be a
Yeah.
prospect in 10 years' time, however it goes. It's just like, Cortez is the more important of the two historically. I mean, he could now see, I think Hillary might come back, actually. I think the Democratic Party are going to hobble Bernie Sanders again. And I think there's...
No, I think Hillary Clinton's time has come and gone. She's even said that
Right.
herself. For her to do that means that the Democratic Party is really playing games they shouldn't be playing. There are people similar to Hillary Clinton that could take up that mantle. Elizabeth Warren's the closest thing. She was somebody who was associated with the Clintons in the past, and she's probably the best bet. But there's so many others that I can't even think of right now that will probably be that we probably have to keep an eye on.
Well, Bloomberg with his billions, he's at number 4 at the moment, and he hasn't even had to do a debate. So, I mean, he's prepared to spend $2 billion. So I think that, Bloomberg might come up the rear.
Well, that remains to be seen. That remains to be seen. I may be losing you because my phone is getting ready to die.
Oh, okay.
But,
well, listen, I can wrap this up for you. But no, listen, it's like you are exactly the kind of the effective activist that I want to talk to on these podcasts, to be honest, because like I said, and I think Cortez is an interesting person note to end on almost, because it is about the power has shifted, I think, from elected office to the world of activists.
But I think also, even though we can look at our elected officials, those elected officials got there somehow. And that's where we have to start looking at what it is we are going to do in the future. We put them in office, and if they're not representing us correctly, we're going to vote them out. But in the meantime, we have to start building things within ourselves to make sure that the society goes in the direction we want it to go in, and B, the politicians get the message that this is the direction we want to go in. So again, that's what Occupy was about. And we have to continue on with that notion, with the idea that we are the ones that make things happen. if we feel that it's somebody else that has the power, we're going to lose before we even start.
And there you go. I couldn't agree with you more. That's a great note to end on. Where can people find you again? How can the listeners come and follow your organization and join your group?
And they can hit me up at you can find onepeoplesproject.com. Our newsline is idavox.com, idavox.com. You can also see me on Twitter at D Lamont Jenkins, Instagram the same name, and that's about it.
I'll include I'll include all the links to those with this podcast as well, so people can follow that.
Yes, and also I'm surprised I actually forgot this, but people might know me from the documentary Alt-Right Age of Rage, which is on Netflix. There's the movie Skin, where Mike Coulter plays me.
It's that's right. Yeah, you're a big star.
That I helped reform. That's on Amazon Prime. The short film Skin you can actually find on YouTube. And I'm all over the place.
You are. You're a proper star. I was lucky to get you. So I'm very, very happy that you agreed to come and talk to me today. And it's been an absolute education and a delight, and I can't thank you enough. Daryle Lamont Jenkins.
Oh, you're very welcome.
You've been amazing. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.